Hey, what is up, everybody? So this is the first ever solo episode of the Greg Troyan Show. Where remember a while back I said I was going to do Q and A's, and then I got sick, and then I stopped doing Q and A's. So I have the question list. I'm like, oh, I should actually answer those. So this is going to be a special Q and A episode of the Greg Troyan Show. So got some water, got some questions. If your question was not asked on the show, it's because I had a computer crash and I lost my Word doc that had all the questions. So I found most of them. So if your question didn't get asked, please ask it in the comments, and then I will address it in the next solo QA episode. Which I think I'm gonna just start doing these periodically, fireside chats. I'm the FDR of hair metal. I always like to say. I've never said that before, but yeah, let's make that a thing. Greg Troyan is the FDR of hair metal. What does that mean? I don't know. Yeah. So let's get into this question. So got a couple saved on ye old telephone here. So this is from Dream Sketcher, starting things off. If you could speak with Phil and ask him anything, what would that be? So referencing Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. Um, so this is going to be I didn't really prepare answers for these. I'm just reading the questions. Take a drink. Think about this. I'm um I'm not certain that there's anything I really want to ask him necessarily. I would just want to talk. The way with the Greg Troyan Show, the talk show, when I have guests, is that I don't necessarily go in with an agenda of like I want to ask this. Um, my agenda is just to have an open and flowing conversation and see where it leads. And so I might have an idea about a couple things I might want to ask about, but it's I don't necessarily script the way I ask it. I just let the conversation flow and just sort of let my curiosity take me where it takes me and allow us to do our dance of conversation to see where it goes. So with Phil, um, there's so many things I would just want to talk about. I just think the conversation would flow naturally. So we'd probably talk about family, about upbringing, about kids, about fist fights. We'd probably talk about fist fighting, and we'd probably talk about like different techniques. We'd probably talk about that. We talk about songcraft, and also we'd probably talk about what we like about certain records, what we don't like, and we'd probably just get into the nitty gritty of talking shop. So kind of like with the Lee McCormick episode, where we just got like into the nitty gritty of talking about just like music making in the process. I feel that's what it'd be like with Phil, but it's just like I think we'd find enough common shared interests with our love of literature, love of music, uh, tendency to get into fights back in the day, and I think it just the conversation would flow so naturally. So I don't even know it would be the way that he would respond to me that would dictate the conversation. So I don't think there's any one particular thing I would want to ask him, but I would love to just like have a chat and be friendly. And that's kind of how I am with pretty much all like my heroes and stuff. Like it's not like I'm like give me that one answer of that thing I'm curious about. Like with Jim Steinman, I was curious about why there were two different Nowhere Fasts and how they had the same chorus, but you had completely different lyrics and music for the verses. And I found that to be sort of a fascinating thing, how we just like completely rewrote from the ground up the verses for the songs, and both songs are great. And so, like, I would maybe ask that to Jim Steinman as a songwriting curiosity, but I don't necessarily have that same. There's not like that weird anomaly with Phil that only Phil could answer that I'm really that curious about. And with Jim, I've talked with him before about other things. Rest in peace. Um, and when I did ask him about that, he was very cryptic. So like, I still don't know. He was just like, the Fire Inc. version is the true version. So, um, but yeah, with what would I ask Phil? I mean, I don't know. I would just want to chat with him and just see where it goes. So sort of a non-answer, but that's the truth. Is that I wouldn't have any particular individual question. Let's see what else we got. All right. We're gonna do some dream sketchers all in a row. What is Thin Lizzy's strongest attribute in your opinion? If you could only compliment them on one thing, the music slash melody creation, the lyric writing, the vocal. You mentioned Phil as parentheses, you mentioned Phil as very sensitive and emotive vocalist or performance. What stands out the most? I think it may be tricky because that's because they are very good. I think if I'm going to give, so I just had that conversation with Par Ulsen where he was talking about how Thin Lizzy works because of all the different components together and how you can't take any one piece out and have it still work. And I think there's truth to that in a degree where you look at Phil's solo albums and they're not typically as strong as the Thin Lizzy stuff. You look at Black Star Riders, which is Thin Lizzy minus Phil, not as strong as the Thin Lizzy stuff. So you kind of need that gumbo together. But you know what? I'm gonna go back to my tried and true answer to Phil's songwriting. I am a guy who believes in song first. Like there are times where just like an impressive player will be able to capture you by just the strength they're playing. But more often than not, I'm not interested in like a really great player because there's the best guitar player in the world is probably some dude on YouTube doing a shitty death metal version of a Disney song. And he probably has like 200 million views, but I'm not into that. I'm into the writing and craft of songwriting. And don't get me wrong, like he's playing a great Disney song, that guy, but he's playing it in a way that I don't like. So, but for me, like I'm more concerned with songwriting. I know so many local bands who are great players, and they can't write a song to save their life. Like the songs suck. Um, and so it's like, oh man, your playing is great, but I don't care about anything on your CD because the songs aren't great. So for me, I would say the biggest strength of Thin Lizzy is the songwriting. I think they're great songs, written well, and I love their third album, Vagabonds of the Western World, which is when they were a power trio, and it's still a great album despite not having the musical strength they would get from later guitar players. And for me, that is the proof that it's about songwriting over necessarily the playing. You still need great playing, but if I'm going to take away one thing from Lizzy as being like their strongest attribute, it is absolutely the songwriting, with Phil being at the forefront of that, but also, credit where credit is due, the great contributions of all the other members. So that is what I would say is their strongest attribute. So let's see here. Let's see what the next question is. All right, so this is going to be the last Dream Sketcher one, which I screen capped all of these when I was scrolling through messages. Also, yeah, if you want to message me, I don't know, email me. My email is very easy to find. It's greg at lipstickgeneration.com. Instagram me in the DMs. That's probably the best way to say hi, the Instagram DMs. Uh, but yeah. So, also for a future Q&A, if you could come back and be one of the any of the musicians slash singers you admire, who would you be? We're not talking about taking their fate, so don't consider that just for musical ability or experience. So I get to body swap with any musician, singer that I admire. So this is to take their experiences or musical talents because all right. So if I'm just gonna like hijack the skill set and body of a musician, so that's here's the trick: is that there are certain musicians that I would want to like. Hmm. You know what? I think I'm gonna go with Prince. I think Prince's versatility as a player, as a performer, his just general ability, and just virtuosity at pretty much every instrument would just make me a and plus like his army of subordinates that does what he says. I think that would give me the widest skill set and ability to create basically any kind of music that I want. Um, so I think yeah, I would go with Prince just because it gives me the most amount of power in terms of like resources, ability, army of minions. Yeah, I would go with Prince just for the sheer amount of power that guy had. Um, Another one I thought about would be Freddie Mercury. obviously great performer, talented on the piano, amazing singer. But the reason I actually chose Prince over Freddie is that there are I love Prince's music, but I feel like if I was Freddie Mercury, the music I would want to make would probably be closer to Freddie's style. But also, if I'm taking his body, I wouldn't want to rob the world of the great songs he was writing. Versus Prince, like I like his music, but I'm like, you know what? Like, if I had Prince's power level when I had to trade like my songs with his abilities, like that's one where I'm like, you know what? I'll make the trade because I love his music, I love his songs, but like I could live in a world without Black Sweat, even though that's a banger and a great song. I can't live in a world without Bohemian Rhapsody. So that's where it's tricky for me. But like Prince is one of my favorites. Like it's tough because I wouldn't want to rob the world of the great songs they would make, but I'd want those sweet sweet skills. So yeah, Freddie Mercury or Prince would be who I'd want for that. So give me just a moment. Okay, we're back. Now let's take a look at these other questions that I got here. So some of these are just asking me for just like my general opinion on things. So Joe asks, "What's your opinion on chicken nuggets?" So we're talking about McNuggets from McDonald's, um, or just general chicken nuggets. Um, so McNuggets are delicious, absolutely tasty, but it's hard for me to like buy them because they're so small, and like when you're spending money at fast food, you want something that's just gonna like fill you up. And so it feels like when you order the nuggets, you don't feel like you're getting filled up, even though they're more filling than they look. Um, but yeah, I like chicken nuggets. I don't know. I maybe get them like once every couple years, maybe. Like I'm not, especially with the pandemic. Like I'm basically not touching fast food because I'm not going out much. Um, but I'm interested in trying those BTS dipping sauces, which is basically just like vaguely Korean inspired dipping sauces, tepidly sponsored or endorsed by BTS. I don't know. Hopefully the band gets a buck from it. But yeah, chicken nuggets, they're fine. Let's see here. All right, Chris asks, "What would you think about Pantera fronted by Miley Cyrus? Be a better band? Yeah, I think I think Pantera fronted by Miley Cyrus would be a better band. I don't have a very high opinion of Phil Anselmo. Um, I think the Cowboys from Hell album is fantastic, and then basically everything Pantera did before and everything Pantera did after, I can't stand. But that one album is basically like banger, 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 all in a row, just great stuff. Miley, underrated performer, underrated songwriter. She's very clever. She's got rock and roll edge, great voice, great performer, very cool taste in music. Yeah, so I like Miley. I like Miley Cyrus more than Pantera, and yeah, I think that if you had Miley fronting a band with Dimebag, rest in peace. And I think Vinnie Paul is actually dead too. Not the biggest Pantera fan, as you can tell. Um, but yeah, I think like yeah, Miley could rock Cemetery Gates. Absolutely, absolutely, she would nail it. Um, any hot? All right, so Jace asked any hot takes about the Beatles. Hot takes about the Beatles. I get nowadays it's like a hot take to say like the Beatles are great and your favorite band. Um, it's become very popular to like people like swiping at sacred cows. They think that's a replacement for personality. It's just like I don't like the Beatles. Aren't I cool? Like, I mean, whatever. Like we weren't asking for your opinion. You just like went out of the way to tell us you don't like the Beatles. Like, I understand like people are burnt out on their popularity, but like they're really good. Like are you going to be burnt out on people saying Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time? Like, he's just good. That's just it. Like, quality is quality. I mean, I understand like art is more subjective, but the only like thing about the Beatles, there are some things I don't care for. Obviously, like Lennon's personality could be grating. Um, and obviously there's the domestic abuse. Um, but I think the fact that like there was like being raised Judeo-Christian, you like to believe in the concept of forgiveness and people doing better, and especially with like a more liberal mindset like myself, where you believe in like the prison reform system and that prisoners deserve a second chance. Um, and so I do believe in like the goodness of humanity and second chances for people. No, pardon me. The fact that John Lennon was openly remorseful about his past bad behavior and like owned up to it and said, I did things that were terrible, but he wasn't even forced into doing it like in the modern cancer culture sense where like someone does a bad thing and then they only apologize because the media is forcing them to. Like John Lennon, to his credit, went on a quest to better himself personally, looked at the mistakes of his past, was horrified by them, and tried to be a better person. And did he always succeed? No, but he was aware and he tried to be better. And in a time where that kind of thing was unfortunately more common, and so that's not to excuse it. I came from a situation where like my stepdad did that to me and my mom, and that's horrible. So like I'm not gonna like make excuses for that, but I do like to believe in people having that chance to be better, to reform, to redeem themselves. And so the fact that John Lennon went on that quest of personal discovery and tried to be better, I really applaud. So I think that ultimately, history remembers him pretty fairly. Uh, my favorite Beatles, Paul, um, because I think Paul is a better person and a better musician. Even though I like John better as a singer, I prefer Paul personality wise and like song wise. Um, but yeah, I don't really have too many hot takes about the Beatles. You know, I'm not the first person to say that Revolution Number 9 is terrible. I won't be the last. But yeah, just I would need a more specific Beatles question, but yeah, no real hot takes there. All right, let's see here. So next up, what do you think music from The Elder by Kiss would have been like if it was produced by their original choice, Mutt Lange? Um, so I think if The Elder was produced by Mutt Lange, they would do a harder rocking album, and it probably would have been more similar sound wise to AC/DC's Back in Black. So would have been a heavier album. Actually, I don't know because Mutt does love pop. So the question is, would he have continued them with that direction from Unmasked and pushed them into an even poppier direction with those big layered vocals, or would it have had like more the AC/DC kind of grit? I think that Kiss would have seen the success of Back in Black and would have wanted to emulate that with Mutt, and so that would have been the direction they wanted to go. So you'd probably have a sort of a similar sound album. You'd probably get the best vocal harmonies you would have ever heard on a Kiss record, almost definitely. So I think you get an album similar to Back in Black, and it probably would have been Kiss's best album. Um, but instead, it became Kiss's best album with Bob Ezrin. So The Elder is my favorite Kiss album. It has some flaws. You would have gotten a much better album vocally with Mutt Lange. That would have been the guarantee. So you wouldn't have had the rock opera. It probably would have been a hard, heavy album, 10 songs. Um, Maybe it would have been a little bit of a comeback for Kiss. It would have been interesting to see. Okay, let's see here. All right, so this is from Victor. Can something that you discover late in your life enter into your top 10, or are you going to be blinded by nostalgia? So the question being, can you get something that, because a lot of our tastes are sort of built when we're younger, like preteens, teenagers, and then that's the stuff we listen to for our entire lives. And then rarely does something like hit you like, 20 years later, and like, oh, I heard this band for the first time when I was 46, and now they're my number three favorite band because they're that good. Typically doesn't happen. What you like in high school is what you like for most of your life. But um, I think something can elevate into your top 10 if it has the right magic formula. Sorry about that. So, for me, the songwriting team of the Frozen songwriters, I first saw Frozen when I was 24. Um, so I didn't have like a built-in nostalgia for Frozen in particular, but I did have a built-in nostalgia for Disney and an appreciation of it. It wasn't like I was a diehard Disney fan as an adult going to see every movie. Like I missed a whole bunch of Disney movies, like hadn't gone to the theaters, and I heard the word of mouth about Frozen, but the first thing that actually got me interested in it was there was this Tumblr page that said everything wrong with Frozen.tumblr. And it was just a picture from the movie, and then the caption Shaquille O'Neal is not in this frame. And so I thought that was funny, and that was what like first piqued my interest in Frozen, and then the song Let It Go, and then seeing the movie. But the thing is, it had elements of things that I liked, and that it had, theater, Jim Steinmanisms. It was really catchy, great vocals, story with heart, strong melodies. And then it became my favorite movie of all time, where I didn't necessarily even have a favorite movie. Maybe Rocky 4 or The Dark Knight or Batman 89 would have been another contender. Sweeney Todd is up there. Um, but yeah, I think something if just something hits that right chord with you, I think it absolutely can elevate into your top 10. Um, the Frozen songwriters, like I was even familiar with some of Robert Lopez's past work, and it didn't do it for me. But just the sheer quality of what they did um, was impressive enough to get into my top 10. So yeah, absolutely, I think something can elevate into your top 10 with an asterisk. I think being 100% truthful, I am not a normal person. I am much more open um, than a lot of people that I know when it comes to art. Like I have my tastes and preferences, but I'm very willing to like give something a shot and a fair shake, and give it the chance to impress me. And I think a lot of people are like in their boxes where they're just like, I listen to hair metal and that's it. I listen to musical theater and that's it. Um, and so there's definitely stuff I know I don't like death metal. Like I'm going to listen to the death metal band you sent me, but I'm probably going to think it sucks. But that's just because there's a number of things about the genre that don't appeal to my tastes. But other than that, I'm pretty open to giving stuff like a fair shake. And because I've actually been called open-minded to my own detriment by folks before, but like being too open-minded about things. Um, so I think if you're open-minded, yeah, absolutely something can elevate into your top 10. But I think a lot of people aren't, and so I think their top 10 stays pretty rigid. Let's see. All right, so Mike asks, any hot takes about music producers? Um, let me think. Hot takes on music producers. So this is like, is there something that's like commonly accepted? Oh yeah, okay. Kanye West. I don't get why people say he is brilliant as a producer. I listen to his stuff. It's fine, but it doesn't seem to be revolutionary or groundbreaking. It's like, yeah, you mixed up some samples, bro. That's cool, I guess. Yes, another rock guy ragging on Kanye West. I know it's revolutionary, but I don't see what the big deal is with him as a producer. I don't see it as being extraordinarily clever. It's fine, but I don't understand the word genius being applied to what he does. Um, Maybe I'm not scrutinizing it as much and really dissecting what's going on, but Kanye as a producer doesn't necessarily blow me away the way that like Bob Ezrin as a producer can, Mutt Lange, um, Todd Rundgren even. I'm not necessarily that impressed by his production qualities. All right, favorite Thin Lizzy guitar duo asked by Warren. I mean, I feel like as a guitar duo, see, Black Rose is my favorite Lizzy album, but yeah, you got to give it to the classic lineup of Robbo and Gorham. Like as far as like the guitars like sounding the best, having that classic like complement to each other, like every Lizzy guitar lineup is great. At least with the eras with Phil in the band. So there's great things about each lineup, and I think that all the lineups other than the classic lineup are underrated. I think they're all underrated, but I can see why people prefer that as the best one. But honestly, like, ask me a different day, my opinion changes. If I was just listening to Thunder and Lightning, like, you know what? Maybe it is Sykes Gorham. So it really just depends on the day of the week. Okay, let's see. What's your opinion on the Jeff Healey band? I don't have a name for this one, so don't remember who sent it, unfortunately. So sorry about that. Um, Jeff Healey band is cool. I was actually familiar with them before I saw Roadhouse. I actually knew the band before I saw the movie. So yeah, definitely a cool band. I definitely think it's interesting to like the way he plays guitar, like on its side. Um, that's definitely a very unusual thing, but obviously the playing was great. So yeah, Jeff Healey band, cool band, not necessarily one of my favorites, but yeah, definitely cool. All right, let's see here. All right, so we've got one left. So nice, short episode of the Greg Troyan Show. Man, who sent this to me? Because I'm excited about tackling this one. Oh yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the ending of Final Fantasy VII? So this is unplanned because this list is old. But I've actually got the Final Fantasy VII strategy guide up here from back in the day. So, oh boy, where to begin? So, spoilers for a video game that's old enough to drink. So, yeah, if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII, this is your spoiler warning as to because we're talking about the ending. Um, First of all, spoilers are dumb. Uh, I think if you care about spoilers, it's dumb. A work of fiction should be good whether or not you know the spoilers, because it should be told in a way that's powerful. Like if you see the movie for a second time, it still makes you cry. Like you watch Paddington 2, and you know the ending is coming, but you're like, damn it, I'm gonna cry at the end. There's a movie called Grave of the Fireflies that spoils the ending in the opening scene, where it's like, hey, see these two little kids you're going to follow for the entire movie? They're dead, and this is the story about how two small children die of starvation and disease. Isn't that terrible? So, like, they let you know right away they're not going to make it. It's sad. Shakespeare spoiled the endings at the beginning of his plays, and you know what? They were still great. So, I don't buy into the spoiler thing. I think it's silly. I think the people who are like hiding their heads in the sand to avoid spoilers is absurd. You're a grown adult. it's fine. Someone told you the ending of a movie. All right, I guess you're not going to watch and enjoy it now. Everything is ruined. Like, I don't know. I'm a guy who's passionate about storytelling and the craft of storytelling, and I don't get upset about spoilers. So like, if you're just like some dude who just like likes to watch stuff, like just chill out. It's not a big deal. Anyway, so spoilers for the ending of FF7. Oh man, how to even tackle this? How to tackle the ending of Final Fantasy VII with my predominantly Thin Lizzy classic rock audience? Okay, so Final Fantasy VII is a story with several different major themes. And a big core theme of the game is there's environmentalism, uh, life and death, and self discovery. Yeah, those would probably be the major themes: environmentalism, life and death, and self discovery, self acceptance. Would be the themes of this video game from the '90s, which and also a slightly anti-capitalist stance. Yes, definitely anti-capitalist. So you might be saying to yourself, for like the non-gaming initiated, that sounds a bit weird for a video game. And also a bit weird for one of the biggest selling video games of all time. But that's how she goes. But so the ending of the game, the main characters are descending into this crater. How much context do I give? Because there's okay. Um, yeah, that's the trick. Is how much context do I give, or do I just talk about the ending for people who know it? Um. All right. Let's see. How good does this show up? That is the trick. Let's see. How good does that? Actually, pretty decently. All right. Sit down, kids. We're gonna tell you a story. Except those of you just listening to the audio only version, you won't be able to check out these sweet, sweet visuals from YouTube. So sorry about that. Okay, so Final Fantasy VII is largely the story of this guy right here with the giant kitchen knife. His name is Cloud Strife. So, yeah, complete spoilers for the game. So, Cloud Strife is a mercenary for hire of this organization called Shinra, which is basically like this private military groups, basically Blackwater. In this world, world governments have basically ceased to function, and instead there's this one giant monopoly corporation called the Shinra Energy Company that basically controls all the world's governments. It's a mega corporation. Governments are basically puppets to the power of this corporation, and what they do is they suck a energy out of the planet called Mako energy, which when it's sucked out of the planet slowly kills the planet because it is part of the lifeblood of the planet. It's part of what's called the life stream. So when your soul dies, it returns to the life stream, and then when a new life is born, it comes up from the life stream, and thus it's this circle of life, as you will. And so the Shinra Corporation is sucking the energy out of the planet to like power electricity and stuff, but the planet is slowly dying because of it. And so you can obviously see the environmentalist messages there and sort of the parallels between our energy sources, particularly like there's like reactors, so there's a critique of both of nuclear energy, but also like the way that it comes out from the planet and is based off of like living material from the planet is also obviously an oil metaphor, but also some of it gets lost in translation because like there's like a coal mine in town that like isn't coal so much better than what we're using this Mako energy. So there's a little bit of mixed messaging there. But basically, evil corporation controls the world, has their own military essentially, sucks the lifeblood from the planet. All right, you following so far? So, um, Cloud, blonde-haired, spiky guy, worked for the organization and was like one of their like elite military ops guys. There's like an elite unit called Soldier, and and so he was part of this like soldier first class, like the best of the best of the best, sir, Green Beret shit, all that rad stuff. And so he um, eventually quit soldier and became a mercenary for hire and joined an eco-terrorist group called Avalanche, which is like fighting to save the planet, man. So he joins up with them for cash. But it's then revealed that he actually was never in soldier. He had just like crazy psychological trauma and like grafted his like mixed his memories with the memories of like a friend that was in soldier, and so took on his identity after that friend died after experiencing like a ton of trauma and like failing to accept who he was, and so he built up this personality and like had like all these like weird false memories and stuff and told everyone, oh, I was in soldier, but he was just like a regular like low ranking schlub that never made it to the elites, but he built his entire life around this lie. And the bad guy of the game, which I don't know if I'll be able to find a picture of him in here, at least somewhere in here is a picture of the bad guy. All right, so flipping through, man, there's a lot of game in this game. All right, can't find a picture of him, but anyway, so the the main villain of the game is a guy named Sephiroth, who was also Soldier First Class, considered a legend, and he he was genetically modified with cells of an alien. Oh man, this is so weird to just explain this, but basically, he wants to become a god, and so he summons a meteor to the planet to destroy the planet. That is his goal. He wants to summon this big meteor to destroy the planet, and it's slowly approaching. Um, and there is another member of the team, another hero, whose name is Eris, with an S, you nerds. That's a flame war. But anyway, she, in order to stop the meteor, um, she, or in order to stop Sephiroth, she uh, casts a spell called Holy, which is supposed to destroy any threat to the planet. And so there's a question as to whether or not human beings are considered a threat to the planet. And so she summons this spell Holy, which would use the power of the life stream to destroy the threats to the planet, which might include humanity. But right as she's casting the spell, Sephiroth kills her. Spoilers for the most famous death scene in video game history. It's very sad. Everyone cries. And prevents the spell from being completed. And so in order for the spell to be completed, he needs to be stopped, and then Holy might be able to stop Meteor, but also at what cost? So that's sort of like the setup for the final battle. So basically, Holy is being prevented from being completed. They need to defeat the bad guy, and then we'll see what happens after Holy is cast. And so, Holy, you beat the final boss, and then Cloud, who like spends a lot of the game being psychologically tormented by Sephiroth, goes back and fights Sephiroth in a one-on-one duel. And after he defeats him, Holy is cast, and the cast is rushing to escape the crater before all hell breaks loose. And you see Holy cast destroy the meteor before it destroys the planet, but also you don't see what happens to humanity. And then it cuts to 500 years later, the big, dirty metropolis, like the industrial city that like was sucking the lifeblood of the planet, is now covered in like grass and foliage and leaves and stuff, and nature is taken over. But you also hear the sounds of children laughing, and you see one of the characters who's like a talking dog running around with his talking dog descendants. And so the main criticism of the ending is that it does not properly give closure to the different characters. Like, you don't know what happens to humanity. It's open ended. But I think, given the game's environmentalist message and how the characters had their conclusions to their character arcs before that final scene, I didn't need a scene of like each of them just like going back to their house, chilling out, and being happy. I think that that open-ended nature of the ending like forces reflection upon the player as to what role humanity has on this planet and whether or not we are something that is worth protecting or something that is actively destroying the world upon which we live. And so I think the ending is brilliant. Like it's a very controversial ending in the series. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. I think based upon the themes that the story is trying to tell, I think it's a knockout home run. And ordinarily I like more clarity with the endings, but I think it's like it does such a good job of accenting that environmentalist theme and really like forcing you to debate whether or not humanity survived, whether or not humanity was considered a virus that wholly needed to wipe off the planet to protect the planet, or whether or not it was something that wholly considered worth protecting. I think that is a brilliant, brilliant decision for the ending. And like I said, that you got the character resolution stuff. Like there's a moment where after Cloud defeats Sephiroth, he sees a hand reaching out to him. In the ending sequence, and you know you hear the theme of Eris, and it has like sort of this like angelic quality, and so it's almost like wondering like if he's like reaching into the great beyond. But then it's revealed that's actually Tifa, his other love interest, who the one who ended up surviving, reached out to him. And so there's also this sort of like lesson of like loss and moving on and like accepting the reality that is in front of you rather than the reality you want to build, but also like even though the character is dead, her like lingering presence and spirit still permeates throughout the team, and just like you feel like her lack of presence, but also with the life stream, like the spirit of the planet. So I would say it's a phenomenal ending because it has great character. It has meaningful character resolution and not just surface level stuff. Like, and then they went and had a happy family. Like, no, it's like the core conflict of their soul has been resolved. The planet has been saved, and so ultimately, the stuff that it forces you to reflect upon, I think, are more valuable than just like here's a tour of everyone hanging out at their houses. Um, So I think it's a phenomenal you know perfect ending. Absolutely perfect ending. Pretend the sequels don't exist. Um, it's amazing. A fine, fine, fine piece of art. So I probably botched that by spending too much time building up and giving context for the ending. So apologies for that. I forgot that question was on the list and probably would have considered my thoughts a bit more carefully. um, but I'm glad I addressed it. So yeah, so hope you enjoyed the first ever Q&A Greg Troyan Show. I might try to do one of these live. Just take live questions from the audience. I think that'd be cool. So yeah, gonna try that at some point. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to do the liking, commenting, subscribing. I appreciate your support. And yeah, you guys have a good one. Bye, everyone.